Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next session. As usual, we'd love for you to introduce yourselves by letting us know your school name and county in the chat. Make sure, again, as we've asked before, that you are on panelists and attendees so that everyone can see who's here. And we are going to be starting our next session momentarily. I want to welcome everybody that is joining us. Thank you all for being here. I see the numbers are increasing. Terrific. Glad to see everyone participating. I hope you're enjoying the symposium as much as I am. Again, I want to welcome you to this session, session 6. It is the value of youth-adult partnerships to create sustainable civic change. I'm Susan Toth. I'm the environmental education specialist with the Everglades Foundation. I want you to know that as an environmental educator, it's been my wonderful opportunity to work with youth-adult partnership programs and really see the impact that these programs have not only on the communities in which the students are working, but with the students themselves as they begin to see the power they have to affect change in their communities. If you joined us yesterday and heard Delaney Reynolds, then I know you were inspired about the changes that youth can make in their communities and the power of their voice. In this session, we're going to expand that conversation and look at the unique synergy that can happen with youth-adult partnerships when young people and adults share a common goal. The frameworks that we're going to be talking about are going to show you documentation too that this kind of partnership and working together enhances student-teacher relationships. It improves student climate as well as improving curriculum and instruction. Again, welcome everybody that has joined the chat. So glad to see everyone here. Before I welcome our panelists and presenters, I just want to go over our guidelines once again for our webinars. If you've been with us in the symposium, you know these, but we're going to use the chat room as the main vehicle for communication. So you can post your comments, questions there. We'll be monitoring that throughout the session and try to address your questions in a timely fashion. If we don't get them during the session, hopefully at the end. Also, be reminded that we are recording this session, and with that, I think we can go to the next slide. Again, we're excited about your participation in the Everglades Teacher Symposium. We love it when you share on social media about what's going on. So please use our handles that are on the screen, and don't forget to use our hashtags Everglades Literacy and get your feet wet and take that first step, which are our themes this year for our symposium. With that, I am going to be turning it over to our presenters. You're going to be meeting today Alyssa McConkey. She is a program manager with Earth Force. And also, some of you may already know Alicia Torres, who is our K-12 Everglades Champion Program Manager here with the Everglades Foundation. With that, and no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa and Alicia.
All right. Hi. I'm so thrilled to be here today. Thank you. I'm zooming in from Colorado, so you all are a few hours ahead of me, but what a great way to spend my morning. So my name is Alyssa McConkey, and I am a program manager with an organization called Earth Force that focuses on getting young people to environmental action around, well, civic action around environmental issues that are important to them. And a big piece of this is youth adult partnerships. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. And Alicia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alyssa. Yeah, so I've been working with Alyssa on, joining how Foundation and Earth Force can unite and bring this information to you guys and kind of wield it through our programming especially for champion schools. But regardless if you're a champion school or not, this is applicable for everything, right? For everybody, K through 12. So a little bit about myself. Before I came to the Everglades Foundation, I was a classroom teacher teaching science. I taught from pre-K through 8th grade, and worked with my high school students on our green initiatives at the school. So I'm really excited to share this information with you and join forces with Earth Force to bring it to speak specifically about youth adult partnerships. So I will turn it back over to Alyssa for our first question.
I do love that we are both EF as like an abbreviation. So it's like EF squared, forces unite. I love that.
Yeah.
So thanks again for everyone for being here. So I wanted to start off and ask you all a question. So this is a Jamboard. It's a collaborative space to share comments and questions. I'm going to put this in the chat right now. Oh, look at that. Everyone, they're ahead of me. That's fantastic. So the question here is, what does the term youth adult partnerships mean to you? And I thought it would be valuable to get your thoughts beforehand. If you can't access this Jamboard and go ahead and put your thoughts in there, then you can just put them in the chat and we'll add them to the Jamboard. You'll see there's a little sticky note option there, and you can just click on that and it should bring up a little, yes, like that, sticky note. And then on there, you can help us define what youth adult partnerships are to you. What does that mean when you think about youth adult partnerships?
So when you click on this third icon down, that looks like a little sticky note, then you type in your info and then share it.
It sometimes takes a minute for everyone to get their stuff in there. I see there's about half of you in there. I like this, working together. Oh, Alicia, you go ahead and move them. Yeah, working together for sure. What are some other thoughts y'all have? Collaboration and deepening understanding. Buddy system. I like that. I've never heard that before. I love that one. Using the buddy system. Adults guiding and providing support to youth-led projects. Youth choose the issue they're interested in. That person must know Earth Force. I don't know. That sounds very Earth Force-y. Scholars and volunteers working together. Yeah, these are good. Yeah, adults in community who meet with students regularly. Yeah, you'll see that community piece is a big part of this. So yeah, equal partnership. These are so good. Oh my gosh, I hope we can take we'll just save this for everybody. If anybody else wants to throw thoughts on there. Thank you. This really, yeah, students have a say too. Definitely. Intentionality. These are fantastic. Yeah, we should capture these comments. So thank you for your thoughts. Those were all really fantastic comments. And so we define youth adult partnerships as a group of youth and adults working together to make decisions and take action. That's Earth Force is all about action. So we throw the action in there too. It's not like a specific program model or a curriculum. Really, it's more a set of principles and practices that can be applied to a wide range of settings and activities. So youth adult partnerships is not just about giving young people a voice. It's really about shared decision making, right? We hear like youth voice a lot, but this is really about, like that someone said, 50-50, kind of like it's really that partnership piece, right? In youth adult partnership settings, youth are increasingly serving alongside adults as facilitators, educators, board members. We love our board members, our youth board members at EarthForce. Researchers, community organizers, fundraisers, you name it, right? In all of these situations, youth and adult assets are both utilized. Contributions on both ends are valued, and learning is reciprocal. We'll get back to that in a moment, but like reciprocal is like my favorite word for youth adult partnerships. Building authentic youth adult partnerships in the classroom can take time, but it definitely improves all outcomes. So it's worth the investment. So schools that use a youth adult partnership framework have documented enhanced student-teacher relationships, improved student climate, and improved instruction. I know the educators that we work with, they have said that like really engaging in youth adult partnerships has changed their educational experience, and that they're more motivated than ever to be a teacher and to do the amazing work that you all do. Research indicates that students who believe that they have a voice are 7 times more likely to be academically motivated. And other research, there's tons of research out there about this stuff. These are just a few little tidbits. Research has also found that student choice is positively correlated with improved self-concept, political engagement, and tolerance. Like fantastic life skill, people skill things to include. It's like a really important part of youth adult partnerships, those outcomes. So now we're going to share a video. This is an interview I had with young people that were part of actually an educator that does a lot of EarthForce and youth adult partnership stuff. So these folks are from actually 3 different civic action projects, but we'll just hear a few thoughts from them because it's always good to hear from student voice.
Thank you for being here. It means so much to me that you guys took time for your summer to be here with us. How was that to like reach out to local businesses like that and ask them to make a change in their policies and stuff? Was that how'd that feel?
We talked to a bunch of different members on like city government level, like school board and city council and the city government. And then we reached out to a few representatives at the state level and other state staff.
We had to be very like brave to actually like reach out and do it. But the restaurant was definitely very welcoming and was very interested in our idea and our project. And so I think it worked out well. But yeah, it was definitely a little scary at first.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to believe that a thing that started as a science fair project was able to evolve through dedication and commitment into a thing that impacts the entire state of Virginia. I mean, you don't realize how big of a thing it is until it actually happens.
What are some of the things that you took from that experience, even though it maybe didn't end as you had hoped it would initially?
Well, I really like the way that we could actually have the possibility to like get to a citywide policy, how we could actually as a class make a change. I felt personally like important, like we could actually help solve an issue. It was a new experience.
Would you say that this experience has changed your plans for career and just kind of future plans in general?
This project showed me just how much I actually care about environmental science, because I was kind of interested in space, but not like, I wasn't passionate about it. But through this project, I realized just how much I could actually care about a topic, and just how much fun it can be to work on something.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit about some of those skills? What kind of skills you've developed in the EarthForce process?
We definitely learned a lesson to not believe everything everyone tells you, because there's not much transparency. And we also learned like public speaking for sure for most of us.
I mean, this is what youth adult partnership is all about, right? This experience, what you all have said today, the conversations that you've had, the authenticity that you've spoken with. Thank you for being here today, and keep using your voices, keep using that power that you've discovered. You young people are really, really incredible. Like I said before, I'm so grateful that you are our future.
Gets me every time, every time. So that was actually like an hour-long interview I did with these like 3 student groups, and their experiences there. I mean, that was cutting that to 3 minutes is impossible, right? Like there's so many great comments in there, but they just have such an incredible experience when they're put in that like shared decision-making space. They feel different. The learning is different. They're empowered. They're excited. And so I hope you could see like a little taste of that. They're actually, one of those groups just changed in November, changed indoor air legislation in Virginia, and is on track to change that nationally, and about to receive like a congressional Medal of Honor or something. I mean, just really the power of young people when you help work in partnership with them. So there are 4 core principles to youth adult partnerships: authentic decision-making, right? Not just like pretend, but authentic decision-making, natural mentorship, reciprocity, and community connectedness. So we will talk in a little bit more about authentic decision-making. Natural mentorship, I like to think about as just relationship, like authentic relationship, building across the bridge relationship with young people. Community connectedness, I think, is pretty clear, but the power that young people have when they speak to stakeholders and other folks in their community is really amazing. As I mentioned before, reciprocity is my favorite. As we often think as adults that we have everything to teach youth. But when we engage in reciprocal learning and share with students what they've taught us, it can be incredibly valuable. So in those situations, taking time as they teach us something to reflect that back to them is really powerful for young people. They're like, wow, that adult just like shared something really, like I did something here. This was powerful. So that reciprocity thing, I think, is really important. Also on this slide, you'll see a few questions to consider as you start thinking about youth adult partnership efforts. I'm just going to give you a minute to read these through yourself. So a little quiet pause here. This is just like some things to help you get thinking about ways that you could potentially do this. Embrace the silence. All right, so hopefully there's some good nuggets in there. So why does all this matter? I think we're getting at that, right? There's really a synergy that happens when both adults and young people are expected to contribute their resources and perspectives towards a common goal. These relationships have benefits for all of us, youth, adults, and the wider community. You can see some of those benefits on this slide, including increased youth participation and long-term community belonging. This is a huge one for Earth Force, is like why we focus on environmental action civics. By the way, if you see Earth Force, just think environmental action civics or civic action. That's like synonymous. Earth Force is just a model to help folks do this work. So I don't know if I mentioned that in the beginning, but for us, the goal is to have young people really engaged in their communities long-term and taking civic action on environmental issues. So this is why youth adult partnerships is like a core value of what we do. It's really that long-term community belonging. So by partnering with young people and helping them build this increased connection, we can more authentically address social justice issues and strengthen our democracy too. Amen to that. I'm curious to hear from you all about what youth adult partnerships look like in your classrooms and your programs. So if you would just take a minute to just put some comments in the chat. Let me know when you think about, like, there's many different levels of what youth adult partnerships look like. And it's definitely something that we scaffold and we build on. So when you think about what are you doing in your classrooms and your programs that is reflective of youth adult partnerships, or that is an example of youth adult partnerships? Just throw a comment in the chat. And I will drink water. Fundraising, that's so important. That requires a lot of like community outreach and connecting with community. Yeah, Everglades Middle School Champions pilot project, which is amazing. Big fan. Cleanups, yeah. Like improving their community, creating a garden. Do any of you like engage in shared decision-making with your young people, like help them or like allow them to choose their homework or plan like a lesson or anything like that? Oh, there you go. I let my students tell me what they want to focus on. Yeah. What's your interest? What do you want to do? Yeah. Animal stewardship. Allow them to create classroom rules. Love that. Very cool. Yes. Yes, initiate the learning process, but now they're coming in quick. I'm not going to be able to read them all, but I'm sure there's a lot of great ones. Keep those coming, because I think it's great for other people to read how your peers and your community is doing this work. Like, what are examples of that? So keep those coming in. Really, generally when designing youth adult partnership activities, we want to be authentic and engage in that reciprocal learning, right? That like, I learn from you, you learn from me, we're learning together. We want to scaffold opportunities for authentic student voice and engagement. So we want to allow teach a lesson. I just caught in the chat, teach a lesson to peers. I love that. The peer learning is fantastic. So we offer students the opportunity to choose things, lead, design. These are all great examples of that. So we also want to help students uncover answers to their questions versus just like giving them the answers, right? So in the chat, we're going to throw in there now one of these fantastic behind the scenes folks. At Earth Force, we have a few youth adult partnership activities that are a little bit more specific, that kind of scaffold. There's different levels. So feel free to check these out, and you can kind of review them and see like what makes sense for you. Is it like there's a level 1, a level 2, a level 3? Basically, they're just specific examples of youth adult partnership activities. Here, I'm just gonna go boom right here. Oh, forgot the H, but you get the idea. So here are a few additional activities there. It's like a one-page document, and y'all are welcome to access. So now I'm going to turn it over to Alicia.
Thanks, Alyssa. So there's a level of involvement, right? So we don't expect of engagement with your student. So it kind of works on a continuum. In this level of engagement, and then on to what we call that youth adult partnership. So you can see that on this on the screen here, this continuum, that participation starts with outreach. So maybe your communication with the students flows from the adult about the program or the lesson as to inform them, right? Or something that is serving the young people. So you're providing that for them. So then as it moves along that continuum to engagement, that communication starts to shift and flow both ways between the adults and the youth. So now the young people are starting to become more involved by providing that ongoing participation. And then as the young people continue to participate, then the interaction becomes a little bit more collaborative, where the students will start to influence that decision-making process, like you were mentioning in the chat, like helping to make classroom rules, or selecting a lesson that they want to present to maybe other peers, choosing their centers. There's a lot of options there. So, but then as the involvement becomes shift to a partnership, the young people are now sharing power and responsibilities with the adults in making those decisions together. And I know as a teacher, I was a classroom teacher, I had an agenda, I knew exactly what I needed to go through, right? I needed what my standards I needed to hit, what my lessons were, and what I needed to do to make sure that those kids got what they needed in the time allotted that I had them. But it might be hard to kind of release some of that responsibility to get to the students, right? You're the teacher. But that's where that partnership comes into play, right? You're sharing some of that leadership role. I'm not saying that the students should run your classroom entirely, but on certain projects, right, you giving them that that shift of their voice being heard instead of it being your voice as the teacher, as that main lead.
Well said.
Thanks. So here's some tips for educators. You want to reflect maybe on how your students are already engaged with those different aspects of programming, your decision making, and how you operate in the classroom. It could go bigger as how your school operates, and some of those things. And then think about maybe is there opportunities for the youth to be more involved, and why are they? When I was in the classroom, I thought to myself, why am I working so hard? Like, I have a little army of students that start doing this work for me, right? And they enjoy it, right? Yes. I started seeing like, hey, they started coming to me and asking me like, hey, do we need to pick up the recycling today? It's Tuesday, right? So they started taking ownership of these roles at the school when I was working there. Other things they can do is advocate for the importance of youth perspective. So a lot of you are team leaders, right? Leading with your department head, like you standing up to advocate for those students might be part of that, taking that next step, right? Like getting a little bit out of your comfort zone and allowing the, that decision making come, or sharing their perspectives, right? Inviting one of those students to speak and advocate for some of these changes that they are feeling passionate about. Practice scaffolding, like Alyssa was mentioning earlier. Break down some of these projects and actions into component parts so that they can understand what they're supposed to do. If you just dump like the whole thing at them, they're not going to know how to start, right? They're not going to know they don't have the skills yet developmentally to be able to organize that whole process, right? So I think kind of like the science fair project, right? It has each of its sections, and so you don't typically give them the whole project and say go. You have to break down each part so they understand it, and then see how it all comes together at the end for the full scope of things. Also evaluate the options available to the young people. So too few options or too many options could actually be a problem, right? So if they aren't feeling engaged, if they have too few options, they're not feeling engaged, their voice isn't being heard, we might lose them in their wanting to be involved, and we don't want that. And then if you have them too much, then they might take over in a way that sometimes you have some dominant voices among the kids that that like to share their ideas. So there's both can be extremes. You want to kind of have that balance in the middle. And some other ones is to realize that the effective youth adult partnerships are built upon these relationships. I know in this last session we were talking with the diversity and inclusion panel, it's about the relationships that you form, the communication that's starting, and having it being authentic, right? So understanding their perspective and having and really establishing this sense of belongingness. I don't know if you've ever experienced where you're going into, you just got hired at a new school and you don't really feel that sense of belonging yet, right? So now you're like, how do I feel, and I'm an adult, right? So how do I feel fit in, like once you become adjusted and as a family member, as you might say, you feel a little bit different. And that's kind of what we want our students to do, is feel that authentic relationship, that sense of belongingness within your classroom, within the school body, and just being able to express themselves. So we've talked, obviously, these are the three. As I was trying to put these tips together, I thought of what are some keywords here. Authenticity spoke out to me. You might have to reach out to your youth because they might not realize that this is an option for them. Right? So you might have to meet them where they are, right? And then providing them with constructive feedback. So not to push them down, but really how can they improve as a human being, right? These are our future stewards of our decision making, whether it's environmental. These are lifelong skills that they will develop through the process. And you guys are the front lines, right? The teachers are the front lines. So there's many ways in which the schools can develop these YAPs into the planning, into your practices that focus on the classroom. It could be school-wide, district-wide, or even state level. There's a level of involvement and engagement that you can do. So start small is my recommendation, not to overwhelm yourself, and then take it to the next level.
Awesome. And I think you made such a good point early on when you were talking about the continuum, Alicia. That was, this is not about just letting students run wild and free and take over the classroom. Like, partnership implies that this is you and them. And oftentimes in the beginning, as you've mentioned, like with scaffolding this, we have to really help provide that feedback and that construction and stuff. So constructive feedback, and really help them get to that point. So thank you for those comments. That was really awesome. So there are a lot of ways that we talked about like making authentic decisions with young people. There are a lot of ways that we can do that. Before we go into this specific example, okay, teachers. Oh, Bianca's got it. Okay. When this goes in the chat, I'm asking you, don't like dig into this too much, like put it in a tab and come back to us. Cause you guys know when you like pass out something, people like turn their attention to that and just kind of disappear. Students do. So just go ahead and open that. That is earthforceresources.org is where a lot of information about decision-making, youth-adult partnerships, a bunch of stuff lives. So it's broad and expansive. It's there as a resource. So don't dig into that now, but maybe bookmark that page or just set it aside and come back to that. But you'll find on there these authentic decision-making tools. You can find various democratic voting practices and a lot more there. So check it out later. So one example of decision-making in partnership is criteria-based decision-making. Can you guys just put in the chat real quick, like a yes, no, sort of, if you've heard of criteria-based decision-making before? I'm just curious. Okay, so there's a few yeses so far. Cool. Okay. A good mix. So in criteria-based decision-making, well, basically this is a way to like work with young people or just people to make decisions. And I love this for making decisions for a project. And I'll dig into that in just a minute. But so in criteria-based decision-making, we first determine criteria, which are standards, right? That we use to make a decision. And then we rank or rate those criteria. I like ranking. This example is a rating or like a yes or no, those criteria against our options. So in this example, we'll look at this and it's using criteria-based decision-making to decide what's for lunch. And this is something we do all the time, every day. It's just that it like happens in our mind and it's not like a formalized process, right? So first you start with deciding criteria. So if Alicia and I are trying to figure out what the heck we're going to eat for lunch, we're going to go look in our cupboards and we're going to say like, okay, I can't even read that thing right now, but like, is it available? Is it healthy? Is it cheap? Is it what, you know, like we have these criteria. Is it quick? I got to run to something. So we decide these criteria in order to determine what we're going to eat. And then we put those criteria to test among the different options. So we got turkey sandwiches, we got a salad, we got a whatever, you know, and then, so we're basically like voting criteria against these particular, in the, like issues, projects, or in this case, lunches, right? Whatever that fill in the blank is. I like this a lot for planning projects, specifically when you're deciding a solution to an issue or determining your planning your project. Criteria can be really helpful because you can say things like, does this comply with school rules? Or do we have the money needed to complete this project? Or is this something we have time for? So this is an example of what's for lunch, but we have tons of activities like this. And in general, you can use this type of decision-making with young people so that everyone has a voice, right? A huge benefit. And then for educators, that you have bounds on a project too. So for me, this is my favorite kind of authentic decision-making. It's a great youth adult partnership tool. And it's something that can be used. We have our colleague I work with started saying, we started using this in our book club. And I was like, that's brilliant. And so like, really, this is just a great decision-making tool. But when we're talking about youth adult partnerships, this is a fantastic way to include everybody's voice. So everyone would vote on this separately, right? And yeah, these tools don't have to be just for students, exactly. So everyone can vote on these things, and then we calculate all of the everybody's votes, and we come up with a shared decision. And so democratic decision-making is a big part of Earth Force and something that is a big part of youth adult partnerships as well. All right.
Great, thanks, Alyssa. So one of the best ways to give students or young people the tools and experience to be engaged citizens is through this civic action piece that at least Alyssa keeps on mentioning. So, you know, youth adult partnerships is part of that. So how do you apply that to the civic action and the civic engagement piece? So civic action or engagement is where an individual or a group is attempting to improve like their life and their community by advocating for some form of change, whether they want to see it directly or but they're reaching out to those people in power and being able to do those changes. And it's important, right? So civic engagement for young people equates to them being more engaged citizens in the future. It creates this pathway to a collective action and system-based solutions. So Earth Force is a way to do this. As she mentioned earlier, there's lots of ways to do this and lots of resources, but the Everglades Foundation partnered with the Earth Force to be able to bring this guides to action to you as being part of our Everglades educators, right? So, and basically this civic action piece is in partnership with youth, addressing environmental issues that is important to your community, not something that somebody told you to be important, that's important, but something that's important to your community, right? So, so speaking of, and I think the next slide, so these are some action highlights from shared stories from across the state. They, as we said, that environmental issues are not just local problems. These are global issues, right? So in arming these students with these skills are life skills. These aren't just like close the book, we learned this section in our class and now we're moving on to the next one. This is built throughout. It's a constant building of skills and a continuum of learning and applying these. So I wanted to share some of these that I really liked. Whoops, sorry. So students at a school learned about many people did not know about toxic pollution of dioxane throughout their state. The dioxane plume was moving towards the Huron River and would have a harmful impact on its water quality. The students advocated that the state government permanently lowered the levels of allowable dioxane in drinking water. They worked in partnership with adult advocates to petition to permanently reduce the allowable levels. In October of 2017, the state permanently changed the allowable levels of dioxane to 7.2 parts per billion, down from 85 parts per billion. So they were successful in reducing those toxic chemicals. And, you know, I wanted to highlight some of these adult partnerships may happen between decision makers beyond you as the classroom teachers, right?
Yep.
So at government agencies, nonprofit organizations, school districts, right? Yeah, principals and so on, right? So it's not just with your classroom, it's any adult that they might be, that you as the facilitator might be creating that pathway for them to make that connection somehow. Another story is young people saved the Winkler Preserve from a proposed transportation development for the new federal buildings. The students fought a proposed ramp off of Interstate 395's HOV lanes that would have destroyed about a third of 45-acre Winkler Botanical Preserve. So the students basically saved this place. So I started thinking about our Everglades watershed. You know, we've lost some of our pine rocklands down by the zoo. And we only have about 3% of that because their voice wasn't heard about the importance of this. So decision makers went in and they kind of changed that. So taking this action to the Everglades in particular, like what does that mean? So this collaboration is to work with your youth or between youth and adults to analyze and create recommendations that make this meaningful change in these policies and community practices that affect the greater Everglades, right? So you're reaching out to stakeholders, the decision makers, and you're addressing these environmental issues. Some of the ones we like to highlight at the Everglades Foundation that we find are super important is, and by all means, this is not like all of them, this is like our overarching theme, right? So water quality, we're all connected by water, we know that already, and its quantity, habitat degradation, invasive species of Florida, both plants and animals, and endangered and threatened species of Florida, like say our Cape Sable seaside sparrow. So there's lots of options here, and that's our focus for Everglades. So in the next session, in session 7, we're almost wrapping up here, but I will go into more details with strategies and steps to do some of these student-led projects for Everglades specific, bringing on board a teacher that was part of this pilot program that did it in the classroom and sharing her experience. So here's our contact information. Alyssa's email's at the top and my email's at the bottom. You can reach us, and I think it's also going to be on our website. So.
Super, thanks so much. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that presentation because having worked for about 20 years with the Earth Force model, Alyssa, I know, that's what happens
So
when
awesome.
you get old.
So
But
awesome.
I've seen the power of this, and I'm so glad that you both emphasized that in this process and through these partnerships, you are building skills in these young people so that not only will they be engaged citizens, they will be effective engaged citizens at making those changes
Absolutely.
in their communities. And so I think that's so awesome. So thank you so much. Again, I'm going to remind everyone to visit our website at evergladesliteracy.org. Again, our session recordings will be there, as well as other resources from this session and others under the Teacher Symposium tab. And you will be receiving information about how to receive your PD points and certificates of completion for this session and any others that you have attended. Again, thanks everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Kim.
Hi, everyone. We have another exciting giveaway today. So for this session, the giveaway is going to be an Everglades Foundation swag bag. And our winner is Katie Morris from Canterbury School in Lee County. So congratulations, Katie. You will receive an email from us letting us know, or letting you know how to receive your prize. So congratulations. Super excited to have you. Alicia mentioned it before, but the next session is going to kind of continue on this process with continuing to educating for civic action, strategies for addressing environmental issues of the Everglades. So this will be a really great kind of a workshop to learn how to incorporate these student-led civic action into Everglades education with some real-world examples of how a school right here in Florida did some of these projects. So we will see you all in about 15 minutes. Alicia just dropped the link in the chat, so make sure that you are registered. And we have another exciting giveaway for that session as well as during session 8. So thank you all, and we'll see you soon.